All right, so are you ready to dive in?
Oh, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one.
Me too. Today we're tackling Sylvain Neuvel's Only Human, the final book in his Themis Files series.
A fantastic conclusion to an amazing
It
series.
really is. Now, for those who haven't read the first two books, don't worry, we'll get you up to speed.
Yeah, no need to feel lost. We'll fill in the gaps.
Exactly. But just a heads up, this book throws us right into the deep end with giant robots, alien encounters, and all sorts of questions about what it means to be human.
You know, one of the things that makes this series so compelling is how Neuvel grounds these fantastical elements in our own world.
Right. Like, it could be happening right under our noses.
Makes you look at history in a whole new light, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, the story starts with these massive robot parts just appearing all over the globe.
Like pieces of a giant puzzle scattered across the planet.
And then this team of scientists, including the brilliant Dr. Rose Franklin, they manage to piece it all together.
And they bring this robot, Themis, online.
And boom, the world changes forever. But here's the twist. This isn't just any old technology.
Oh no, this is alien tech.
We discover that some humans actually have alien DNA.
Remnants of this advanced species called the Ectet.
It's mind-blowing, right? And then another alien robot attacks.
Things escalate quickly.
Dr. Franklin ends up piloting Themis to defend Earth. But then she vanishes, along with Themis and Vincent Couture and his daughter Eva.
Leaving the fate of Earth hanging in the balance.
And that's where Only Human picks up. 9 years later.
9 years of radio silence. Can you imagine the tension?
We find Vincent, Eva, and Rose living on this alien planet called Isat Ect.
Home of the Ect.
They're trying to adapt to this completely different society, a whole new way of life.
But back on Earth, things haven't exactly been standing still.
Not at all. In their absence, the U.S. has become a global superpower, and they've got their hands on another alien robot.
This one called Lepetus.
And they're not afraid to use it to enforce their will.
It makes you think about the nature of power, doesn't it? How easily it can be abused.
It's a bit unsettling, to be honest. And then you've got Eva, struggling with her identity, feeling more at home on this alien planet than on her own.
That sense of displacement must be overwhelming.
Absolutely. And then there's this Earth Defense Corps officer, Eugene Governor. He shows up on Isat Ect.
Dying from an incurable disease.
But here's the thing. The Eket have the cure. They could save him.
But they refuse.
They have this strict non-interference principle.
It governs every aspect of their existence.
It's a fascinating concept, but it's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it?
Yeah.
They could help, but they choose not to.
It challenges our understanding of morality. Makes you question what responsibility we have to other species.
I'm not sure what to think about it, to be honest. And then, to add to the tension, Eva starts having these visions.
Visions of the future.
Yeah, these terrifying glimpses of Themis and Lepetus clashing in this devastating battle.
Sounds ominous.
It's like a ticking time bomb, adding this sense of urgency to the whole narrative.
And things don't get any easier from there, do they?
Not at all. Eva gets captured by the Russians. They want to use her connection to Themis for their own purposes.
So they're trying to weaponize her.
Basically. Meanwhile, Dr. Franklin returns to Earth, and she gets recruited to help control Lepetus.
So now she's the pilot.
Yeah. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of a potential war between China and North Korea.
Talk about a powder keg.
It feels like the whole world is on the brink of collapse.
Neuvel does an amazing job of weaving all these different threads together, creating this incredibly tense and complex narrative.
He really does. And then, just when you think it can't get any more intense, bam, the Eckhart intervene.
They intervene. How?
They take control of all the alien robots on Earth, Themis and Lepetus, and they demand surrender.
Wow, that's a game changer.
It's a total shock.
Oh.
It leaves you wondering, what are they really up to? Are they here to conquer us? Or is there something more to their motives?
So many questions.
It's the ultimate cliffhanger. But before we get into all of that, let's take a closer look at some of the details that make Only Human so captivating.
Sounds good to me.
Like, let's start with the Eket language. Vincent actually learns to communicate with them. And their grammar is so strange.
No, I remember reading about that. It's fascinating.
For instance, instead of saying, I am Vincent, they would say, Ebs eit Vincent.
It's like a puzzle, figuring out how their language works.
It really is. It highlights how differently they see the world.
And then there are those weird red balls they have rolling around on their planet.
The red balls.
Yeah, Vincent's kind of obsessed with them, even though the Ekdek consider them pests.
Huh. What are they like?
Well, they're described as being about the size of a basketball with this fuzzy tail.
Fluffy tail on a ball. That's so bizarre.
It is, but it's those little details that really bring their world to life, you know? Makes you feel like you're right there with Vincent.
Oh, and we can't forget about Eva's visions. They're pretty disturbing.
Those glimpses into the future.
Yeah. There's this one that really stuck with me. She sees this massive battle between robots, but human and ect forms are all mixed up, constantly shifting and merging.
That's creepy.
It's like those lines between us and them are blurred.
Makes you wonder if those distinctions are as clear-cut as we think.
Exactly. And then there's the cultural clash between Earth and Esatic.
Like what?
Well, the Ekit don't have any visual storytelling, like movies or TV.
They don't.
Nope, they find it confusing and weird.
Really?
Yeah. They prioritize experience over just observing. It makes for some awkward moments for Vincent and Eva, who are so used to watching movies and stuff.
That's a pretty big cultural difference. Makes you wonder if we've become too reliant on visual media, you know?
It makes you think, that's for sure. And speaking of cultural differences, there's this funny bit where Vincent tries to figure out how to use the bathroom on Esatic.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, let's just say their facilities are very different from what we're used to.
I can only imagine.
But back on Earth, things have gotten pretty dark.
Yeah.
They've implemented this A5 classification system.
What's that?
It identifies humans with varying degrees of alien DNA.
Oh, wow. So they're segregating people based on their genetics.
Essentially, it's a reflection of how quickly fear and prejudice can take root in society.
It's scary how easily we can turn on each other.
And the ECAP's non-interference principle comes back into play in a big way with Eugene.
The sick officer.
Yeah. They refuse to help him, even though they have the cure. It raises all these ethical questions about intervention and compassion.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Where do we draw the line?
And then there's this Norse myth that Dr. Franklin shares about a blind giant named Scotty.
Scotty.
Yeah. She accidentally kills her father while hunting because she can't see. It's a tragic consequence of her limited perception.
It's a powerful story. What's the connection to the book?
Well, I think it highlights how our own blindness, our inability to see the bigger picture, can lead to unintended consequences.
I see.
And that's something that all the characters in Only Human are struggling with. They're making choices based on incomplete information, and those choices have far-reaching effects.
It makes you think about the ripple effects of our actions, doesn't it? How even with the best intentions, things can go terribly wrong.
It's a sobering thought. And Only Human doesn't shy away from these tough questions. It makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about humanity, about our place in the universe.
It's not just a sci-fi adventure, is it?
Definitely not. It's a deep dive into our own nature, our capacity for both good and evil,
It challenges us to confront our own biases and fears.
and to strive for understanding in a world that often feels very divided.
It's about the choices we make, the consequences we face, and ultimately, what it means to be human.
It's a lot to take in. This deep dive is getting pretty intense. So let's take a pause here for a moment. We'll come back and explore these themes further, along with that wild climax and that mind-blowing ending.
Sounds good to me. I need a moment to process all of this.
Me too. But for now, just sit with these questions, these unsettling truths that Neuvel throws our way.
Let them simmer for a bit. Let them challenge your preconceptions about the world and our place in it.
Because Only Human isn't just a story. It's a mirror reflecting our own hopes, fears, and the complex web of choices that make up our lives.
It makes you think, that's for sure. It's fascinating how Only Human throws us into this massive story, but the real heart of it lies in those smaller moments.
Yeah, those quiet moments of the characters dealing with these crazy situations.
Like Vincent adjusting to life on East Act.
Right, he's so interested in their culture, but he also misses those simple things.
Like what?
Like just watching a movie with Eva, you know?
Oh yeah, and the Eckets think that's totally weird.
I know, right? It's like Neuvel's making a point about our own world.
Our obsession with media.
Exactly. Have we lost something because of it?
Maybe we have. It's like being constantly bombarded
Right.
with images and stories.
Does that stop us from using our own imaginations?
It's like a good question to think about, and it goes beyond just entertainment, too.
Oh yeah, how so?
The Eckett's whole way of life is about experiencing things, not just watching them.
It's such a different way of thinking.
Imagine if we learned by doing, instead of just passively taking in information.
Whoa, that would change everything.
It really would. Our relationships, how we see ourselves, everything.
And then there's that whole A5 classification system back on Earth.
Oh yeah, that's a scary one.
It's a reminder that fear and prejudice can pop up anywhere, especially when politicians get involved.
Absolutely. It's easy to label people as different or dangerous.
especially when you can point to something like their DNA.
It makes you think about how power can be used to control people.
And it's not just a sci-fi thing, right?
Not at all. We've seen it happen throughout history.
People being persecuted for their race or religion.
It's a reminder that we have to keep fighting against those things.
And speaking of fighting against things, let's talk about the ICAT's non-interference principle again.
They could intervene. They have the power.
But they choose not to.
Is it some kind of cosmic detachment?
Or is there something more to it?
Like a deeper wisdom we don't understand?
It's tough to say. On one hand, you have Eugene dying.
And they could easily cure him.
It seems cruel.
But they believe that interfering would mess things up even more.
They're looking at the big picture.
The grand scheme of things.
But is that a good enough reason to not help someone who's suffering?
It's a question that stays with you.
It really does. And then you have that final showdown
Themis versus Lepidus.
with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance.
It's both exciting and terrifying.
You're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
It's more than just a fight, though.
What do you mean?
It represents the struggles we all have inside us,
The good and the bad.
Exactly. And just when you think you know how it's going to end,
The ethnics step in.
they take control of both robots and demand surrender.
It's such a twist.
Makes you question everything you thought you knew about them.
Are they the good guys, or are they something else entirely?
And then they just disappear.
Leaving humanity to deal with the aftermath.
It's mind-blowing what was their purpose.
What were they trying to tell us?
And what does it mean for the future?
Are we alone in the universe, or are there these forces we can't even understand controlling things?
It's a scary thought, but also exciting.
The universe is so vast, there's so much we don't know.
And yet here we are, still trying to make sense of it all.
That's the message of Only Human, right?
It is. Even when faced with the unknown, we keep going.
We keep searching for meaning.
We adapt. We hope we find a way.
That's a powerful message.
It is. It reminds us that even though we're only human, we're capable of amazing things.
We have the power to choose to learn to grow.
And that's something to hold on to.
Especially in times like these, when the world feels so uncertain.
It's a message that stays with you.
Only Human is a story that really makes you think.
It challenges you to look at the world in a different way.
And to see yourself differently, too.
It reminds us that even with all our limitations, there's beauty in being alive.
In being human. It's amazing how Neuvel takes this huge story about robots and aliens and makes it about something so human.
Totally. It's not just about the big flashy stuff.
It's about the choices we make, the relationships we have, even hope.
And that ending, the Akit just disappearing like that?
I know, right after showing how powerful they are.
It's a bold move. It leaves you with so many questions.
At first I wanted more. I was like, what just happened?
Right. You want all the answers tied up neatly.
But the more I think about it, the more I like that open ending.
It's like he's saying, hey, it's your turn now.
What do you think it all means?
Exactly. He trusts us to figure it out ourselves.
I love that. So let's talk about those big questions, like what were the Ikit really after?
Were they trying to save us, or was there something else going on?
It's hard to tell. I mean, they have this whole non-interference thing.
Right, they don't want to mess with us directly.
But then they show up, take all our weapons, and vanish.
It doesn't really add up, does it?
And their actions throughout the series are so strange.
Giving us technology, but not telling us everything.
Watching us, but never really getting involved.
It's like they're playing some kind of game we don't understand.
Maybe their way of thinking is so different.
That we can't even comprehend it.
It's like Dr. Franklin said, we see what we want to see.
We believe what we want to believe.
Maybe we're just not getting it.
Maybe they're operating on a different time scale.
Like they're thinking thousands of years ahead.
That's a mind-blowing thought.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it?
It is, to realize there might be things out there we can't even imagine.
Makes you feel pretty small.
But there's also something beautiful about it, don't you think?
Yeah. The universe is so vast, so mysterious.
There's always more to learn.
We're just scratching the surface.
It's okay to not have all the answers.
The journey is just as important as the destination, right?
Absolutely. I think that's what Only Human is all about.
Embracing the questions, the uncertainty,
Being comfortable with not knowing everything.
and finding hope in those moments, in the choices we make, the connections we have.
So as we wrap up, what stands out to you the most?
For me, it's that question of what does it really mean to be human?
Yeah, what makes us us?
Is it our DNA or is it something more?
Something that sets us apart.
Like our ability to love, to create, to dream.
I think Only Human challenges us to answer that question for ourselves.
To define our own humanity.
In a world that's constantly changing.
Maybe that's the point of the story.
It's not about finding one right answer.
It's about the journey of figuring it out.
Understanding ourselves and our place in the universe.
So keep exploring, Keep questioning, keep diving deep into Only Human.
What resonates with you? What challenges your beliefs?
What does this story tell you about yourself and your place in the world?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, keep searching and keep diving deep